Page 213. Solving the omnivore's dilemma. I met several of those customers on Wednesday afternoon as they come to collect the fresh chickens they reserved. These people were paying a higher price for polyface foods and in many cases driving more than an hour to come get it. But they were not wealthy upper middle class people. They're a real cross section of the type including a school teacher, several retirees, a young mom with her toe-headed twins, a mechanic, an opera singer, a furniture maker, and a woman who worked in a metal plant. What brought them all to the polyface farms? Here are some of the comments I jotted down. This is the chicken I remembered from my childhood. It actually tastes like chicken. I just don't trust the meat in the supermarket anymore. You're not going to find a fresher chicken anywhere. All this meat comes from a happy animals. I know because I've seen them. I drive 150 miles one way in order to get a clean meal for my family. It's very simple. I trust the Sultans more than I trust the Walmart. And I like the idea of keeping my money right here in town. What I was hearing, in other words, was the same omnivore's dilemma that had spurred me to write this book. Somehow getting meat and eggs from the Sultans helped these folks solve their dilemma, at least a little. Getting the food from polyface lets them feel connected to their food. These customers know exactly where the food comes from. Plus, they think it tastes better. And of course, they might just enjoy spending a little time on a farm, chatting on the porch with the Sultans, and taking a beautiful drive in the country to get here. You get what you pay for. I asked Joel what he said to people who said his prices were too high. Whenever I hear people saying clean food is expensive, I tell them it's actually the cheapest food you can buy. That always gets their attention. Then I explain that with our food, all the costs are figured into the price. Society is not bearing the cost of water pollution, the antibiotics resistance, the foodborne illness, of crop subsidies, of subsidized oil and water, all the hidden costs to the environment that the taxpayers make cheap food seem cheap. He also reminded me that his meat will be considerably cheaper than it is if not for the government regulations that forced him to send his cows and hogs away to be processed. Still, whatever the reason, organic and beyond organic food does cost more at the cash register. This is going to make it harder for some people to afford it. Yet, for the great majority of Americans, the reason is not quite so simple. After all, most people would agree that food is more important than a new cell phone or cable TV or a name brand sneakers. Why is it that we pay for those things without blinking, but we won't pay an extra $1 for a dozen of organic eggs? Nowadays, many Americans are even willing to pay for water, something we can get for free from any tap. So why are we willing to pay more for better food? Joel points out that people generally understand that quality costs more, except when it comes to food. When someone drives up to the farm in a BMW and asks me why our eggs cost more, well, first I try not to get mad. Instead, I take him outside and point at his car. Sir, you clearly understand quality and are willing to pay for it. Well, food is no different. You get what you pay for. Agribusiness has bombarded us with a message that all pork is pork, all chicken is chicken. They tell us one egg is exactly like another, but that's just not the case. If that's what you think, then you won't pay $1 extra for the same old carton of eggs. But when you know that some eggs are not only tastier, but also healthier to eat. Then $1 extra for a dozen seems like a bargain. When people know about their food, they start considering quality and not just price. Farmers market and buying clubs. A short food chain helps the consumer know what he or she is buying. It also helps the farmer in another important way. As we saw earlier, farmers in the industrial food chain are often on the edge of going bankrupt. One reason is they make less money than supermarket, wholesalers, and food processors. In fact, out of every dollar spent in the country, 92 cents goes to non-farmers. By selling directly to consumers, Joel gets to keep more of the money. That's why Joel makes more money from his chicken than his beef and pork. He processes the chickens himself and doesn't have to pay someone else. So avoiding the industrial food chain isn't just a matter of principle, it's also good business. Besides the farmer store, Joe sells polyface meat and eggs at farmers market in Washington, D.C. area. The number of farmers markets in the United States has almost doubled in recent years, from 1,755 in 1996 to more than 4,000 in 2008. Polyface also sells to buying clubs. These are groups of families, usually in cities or suburbs, who put together a big order once or twice a month. One person in the club collects the orders and takes delivery of the food. The size of the order makes it worth the farmer's while to deliver. In Joel's case, sometimes as far as Virginia Beach or Bethesda, half a day's drive. Turn to page 219 at the bottom. Seasonal food. Unlike supermarket eggs, polyface eggs are different at different times of the year. They turn paler in the winter when the hens are not in pasture. Art told me that is why one of his biggest challenges. Many customers are not used to the idea of seasonal food. We have forgotten that meats used to be as seasonal as fruits and vegetables. For example, lambs are born in the spring. They are not ready to be eaten for 8 to 10 months in the next winter. Yet supermarket sells spring lambs, which is meat shipped in from New Zealand. The natural season for red meats are fall and winter. The natural seasons for chicken are spring and summer. If local food chains are going to succeed, customers will have to get used to eating that way again. Will customers be ready to give up the convenience of any food anytime? Perhaps they will, if they see that they are getting in return. Chefs around the country, like the ones who buy from Polyface in Virginia, are trying to teach consumers that food actually tastes better when it is fresh, in season, and grown without chemicals. These chefs, along with buying clubs and farmers market, are all part of a worldwide movement. It is the movement away from the industrial food chain and towards more local organic food systems. Eat your view. In Europe, there's a bumper sticker that says, "Eat your view." That's the Polyface customers are doing, preserving the landscape by supporting local farmers. They are part of the industrial movement to change the global food system. The movement includes farmers in Europe who try to preserve local food products and eating habits. Then there are farmers in India who have protested the sale of patented seeds by agribusinesses. These are farm workers in South America who protest the use of dangerous pesticides. And there are people in many countries who are trying to stop the spread of genetically modified foods. It's not surprising that food has become the focus of an international movement. Food is, after all, the center of our lives. In many ways, even if we no longer pay very much attention to it. And it is one part of our lives we can still control. We can still decide every day what we're going to put into our bodies, what sort of food chain we want to be part of. We can vote with our forks. Consumers in the United States have already made big changes in our food system. Our desire to have cleaner, healthier food has created a $20 billion market for industrial organic. Farmers like Joel Sutton, his customers, and all the people who buy from farmers markets and food clubs are trying to make another change. They are making the world local just as powerful as the word organic. Changing is a truly local food economy won't be easy. It might not even be completely possible, but the advantage of moving in the direction are very clear. When consumers know once again how their food is produced, they are naturally going to want to produce in the cleanest, most humane and environmental healthy ways. Eating locally is also an art of conversation. Keeping local foods in businesses keeps the countryside away from being overrun by cities and suburbs. Each review takes work. It means not being able to buy a tomato in December. It means giving up many processed foods. And once you give up processed foods, you have to learn to cook, a skill that is disappearing from many Americans' homes. Are we prepared to go that far? If you build it, they will eat. On my last day on the farm, a soft June Friday afternoon, Joel and I sat talking at a picnic table behind the house. A steady stream of customers dropped by to pick up their chickens. I asked Joel if he believed the industrial food chain would ever be replaced by the local food system. We don't have to beat them, Joel patiently explained. I'm not even sure we should try. I guess I would sum up his view as, if you build it, they will come. He believes that more and more consumers will make the choice to buy local, buy organic foods. The rest will take care of itself. I think he has a point. We may need a great many food chains that combine organic foods and slow foods and local foods in different ways. There may be other food chains we haven't even thought of yet. Natural produce diversity. Polyface Farm is home to diversity. Maybe the food system should be diverse too. Sitting on the porch at Joel's, watching his customers buzz about, I could see parts of the new food system taking shape. It certainly seemed like a good start. Turn to page 229. Find the section, grass, not grain. I had made pretty much the same meal several times before. The list of ingredients looked the same, yet I knew this wasn't the same food at all. This was because the chicken had spent their lives outdoors on pasture rather than in a shed eating grain. When cattle, chickens, and other animals eat grass, and not just corn or other grains, they are actually healthier for us to eat. So is the milk or eggs that come from grass-fed animals. This is no accident. Humans evolved to eat meat from wild animals, animals that ate little or no grain. Animals raised outdoors on grass have a diet much more like the wild animals. It makes sense that their meat, milk, and eggs would be better for us. Green grass has large quantities of beta carotene, vitamin E, and folic acid. These natural chemicals are important for a healthy diet. Animals that eat grass have high levels of these and other important nutrients. It's the beta carotene that gives polyface egg yolks their carroty color. Animals raised in pastures have less fat than grain-fed animals. Part of this is because pasture-fed animals get exercise. Not only that, but the kind of fats that pasteurized animals are the ones that are healthier for us to eat. For example, they have higher levels of polyunsaturated fats instead of monounsaturated fats. They also contain more omega-3s. These are essentially fatty acids that are very important for human health. Among other things, omega-3s are important for growth of brain cells and other neurons. Omega-6 is another fatty acid essential to humans. Our bodies need both of these, and they need them in a right balance. Omega-3s are made in the level of plants. Omega-6 are made in the seeds. There is a lot of evidence that a healthy diet has a pretty even balance of omega-3s and omega-6. And that's exactly the balance in the meat of wild animals. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Human beings evolved to survive, and being healthy on a diet of wild meat and plants. Now go one step further. The meat of grass-fed cows also has the same healthy balance of omega-3 and omega-6. Why? Because grass-fed cows are eating the same diet as their wild ancestors. It turns out that corn-fed cows don't have the healthy balance of omegas. Their meats, it has a ratio about 14 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. Some scientists think this imbalance might help explain the high levels of heart disease in our society. In other words, it's not eating meat so much as eating corn-fed meat that is bad for us. The point is that all beef is not the same. All salmon is not the same. All eggs are not created equal. The type of animal you eat may matter less than what the animal you're eating has itself eaten. Once shoppers notice, they begin to look at food costs differently. Polyface Farms eggs at $2.20 a dozen might be a better deal than the supermarket eggs at 79 cents a dozen. Polyface grass-fed chicken produce eggs with more omega-3s, beta carotene, and vitamin E. And they do it in a way that's better for the environment. Does that sound like a bargain?